Sports Radio Network.
Live from the Buffalo Wild Wings studios, it's time to get locked into the best Sooner recruiting and football news with Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Hit the guys up on the Riverwind Casino call-in line at 405-329-9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
You know, Grayson, there are certain instances in working this job that I just find myself thinking, wow, this really sucks right about now.
I
Not
feel
for
like
me. I mean, like, the job is the job for the most part. I mean, every so often there is a circumstance or there is a recruitment or there is an event that puts me in the crosshairs for the OU fan base or some other team's fan base. Sometimes I catch some flack, which, you know, I can live with it. Tomorrow's going to come all the same. But, man, there are certain junctures at which it just feels like, man, Oklahoma's taking a beating on the trail. And I did not imagine I would find myself feeling that 1 week to the day after Bo Bentley announces that he's picking Oklahoma over LSU. But, man, the Sooners are having a rough go of it the last few days. They got Bo Jandro committed on Monday. They got, Daniel Norman committed Monday as well. So they got a little twofer that day to kick off the week. Bo Jandro, the three-star linebacker from Arizona, committed on Monday. Later that evening, Daniel Norman, the four-star defensive end from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, committed to the Sooners as well. Here's what's happened since then. Dallas Dickerson, the four-star wide receiver from Bogart, Georgia, committed to Kentucky. Drew Evers, the four-star interior offensive lineman from Flower Mound, Texas, committed to SMU. Desmond Green, the four-star interior offensive lineman from St. Stephen, South Carolina, committed to Florida. Craig Dandridge, the four-star wideout from Cambridge, Georgia, committed to Georgia. And finally, last night, out of nowhere, and completely abrupt, very surprising to a lot of folks on the OU end, we saw four-star wide receiver Jaden Petit from Naples, Florida, commit to Wisconsin. And that, I think, broke people. And understandably so, Grayson, because if you are a wide receiver that wants to catch passes and rack up 1,000-yard seasons and put yourself in position to be an NFL draft pick at the end of your collegiate career, it stands to reason that Wisconsin isn't a terribly sensible business decision in that regard, because Wisconsin runs the football a lot. Wisconsin thrives on old school, smash mouth, Big Ten West football that does not put the ball in the air much at all relative to most of the other 133 FBS football programs across the country. And so especially when the feeling with the Jaden Petit recruitment was that it was coming down to Oklahoma and Missouri, for Wisconsin to make the late charge and win the battle for Jaden Petit, a four-star wideout that Oklahoma had really, really, really wanted in their class and really felt good about. That kind of felt like the final crane kick in what has been a really rough week. I think thankfully people were mostly prepared for Taj Overton to pick Oklahoma State over OU today. So that didn't come as much of a surprise. But it's been a really rough week ever since the good news hit on Monday in the form of commitments from Bo Jandro and Daniel Norman.
Well, doesn't it just heighten the importance of getting Daniel Norman and Bo Bentley on board? After the onslaught of what has come against Oklahoma right now, I find this interesting. As you started that intro into our show, Aaron Nolan on our YouTube chat says, are we going to land another skill position player on the offensive side of the ball this cycle. And the reality of the situation now is that there are certain players that Oklahoma is targeting that now are not going to be people that you could view as luxuries or add-ons or something that is just going to bolster the recruiting class. They are necessities now. They have transitioned to that. Davian Gross, 4-star athlete from Frisco Lone Star, projected to play wide receiver at Oklahoma. He is a necessity now. You have to get that done. Zachary Turner, you got to find a way to convince that kid that the best football decision for you is to come play wide receiver at Oklahoma and turn down the bevy of dollars that Miami's offering you, but they want you to play tight end. Those two things have to happen, especially now because Dandridge is off the board, which was probably predictable. Dallas Dickerson, who you thought could be in Oklahoma's class, off the board. And now Jaden Pettit just does whatever that was last night. So now all of a sudden things are going to be under a microscope even more, especially at that wide receiver position.
Wisconsin.
You just can't get over the fact that it's Wisconsin, can you?
I can't, man. And you know what's interesting? I have a couple of very good connections on the Wisconsin side of things. A couple of very good friends up there that I've been talking to throughout the month about the Jaden Pettit situation. And there was some confidence on the Wisconsin end towards the beginning of the month. But over the last couple of weeks, it had kind of been we'll see what happens type of deal. It didn't feel like Wisconsin had nearly as much belief that they were going to be able to close the deal with Pettit as they did towards the beginning of the month after he took his official visit. I believe he was in Madison for his official visit May 30th through June 1st. So that was at the very, very beginning. And, man, you thought they had this kid, man. They did. And I shouldn't say they thought they had him for sure. They felt strongly that they led the race for Jaden Pettit and were in the catbird seat. And then, boom, all of a sudden, randomly on a Thursday afternoon, Wisconsin. And understandably and justifiably, the reaction on social media, on the message boards, it's been very, very negative since Jaden Pettit picked Wisconsin, because once again, it's Wisconsin. It's not like you lost a wide receiver to LSU or to Alabama or to Oregon or even to USC. You lost a wide receiver to Wisconsin. And that just kind of continues the running theme, I should say, because it's not the only theme that we've seen throughout this class, but Oklahoma's had some really surprising head-to-head losses on the trail, and I think it's easy to diagnose why those losses have occurred, right? But just from a PR standpoint, losing Tavian Branch to Rutgers, certainly losing Jaden Pettit to Wisconsin, the possibility of losing a guy like Jordan Clay to Baylor. It's not great in the PR department, Grayson, to be losing recruiting battles to schools like those.
No,
even if you can very well guess why it's happening, and the why is a very understandable rationale, certainly.
Sure it is, but let's pump the brakes on that just a second, because you're losing to a school in Wisconsin who is a very good Big Ten team. You've lost battles. Now, Rutgers, I don't know how to explain that. I'm not going to try to explain away that one. But Baylor has competed for Big 12 championships when Oklahoma's been in the Big 12. So these aren't second-tier schools or some school that you have some major superiority over. Certainly Oklahoma is a much bigger name than Wisconsin and Baylor, but it's not like you're losing these to scrub schools. So I think we got to pump the brakes on that. But the reality of the situation, though, is that now you're allowed to use your built-in resources to outfox some of the bigger name blue blood schools. That NIL has leveled the playing field in that regard, and I think that's just something you have to get used to at this point. That those the 1B type of schools certainly now have a way to go up against the 1A type of schools. Need I bring SMU up yet again after you lose a battle of Drew Evers to SMU? That's just the reality of the situation. Now, positionally with Jaden Petit, it just kind of doesn't really make sense. But you know what? A lot of times you can sell a kid on something, and then when you marry that with the money, that can kick things in your favor.
Wisconsin.
That Wisconsin Badger mascot is going to be in your nightmares, isn't it?
I mean, no, not in my nightmares. It doesn't. Listen, it's no skin off my nose. I'm just the reporter. I just cover recruiting. Where these kids wind up is of little consequence to me, and I've learned over the years, covering OU recruiting for as long as I have, that, look, Oklahoma's going to sign a good class even if XYZ individual isn't in it. But you said it, and it's 100% true. Recruitments that once seemed like and players that once seemed like luxuries for Oklahoma's 2026 class have become necessities. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think OU winds up splitting Davian Gross and Jordan Clay with Baylor. I think one of those guys goes to OU. I think one of those guys goes to Baylor. I don't know that it's feasible realistically for either school to be able to accommodate both of those guys on the payroll. And so I would lean in the direction of Clay going to Baylor, and I would lean OU for Gross. Could that flip? It very easily could. We don't know the timeline on Gross's decision. We know Clay is going to commit on July 11th. But you've got to have one of those two. I mean, that's a non-negotiable at this point. You have to get either Davian Gross or Jordan Clay. And then I don't know if it's an absolute necessity, because wide receivers are generally one of those positions where if you are a school like Oklahoma and you're in the type of seat that Oklahoma occupies nationally with regard to prestige and tradition and offensive excellence, you can roll into the fall and you don't even necessarily have to find an under-the-radar gem. You can go flip a guy that's committed to another P4 school. That should be pretty easy to do for Oklahoma receiver. But what you can't do is roll into the fall with only one commit at the position, which if you strike out on Zachary Turner, Davian Gross, and Jordan Clay, possible at this point, although not likely, I would say, then Daniel Odom is your only commit, remains your only commit at the position. Who would have thought that in 2026 the Sooners would be struggling this hard to piece together a wide receiver class? Because this is the one position where historically they have just not had a whole lot of trouble recruiting. And there was a listener on the text line a while back that said something effectively, Emmett Jones, what a great recruiter he is. He can't land any of those guys. I hope I don't have to spell it out for you folks. The reason Oklahoma didn't land Jaden Petit, the reason Oklahoma didn't land Dallas Dickerson, the reason that Oklahoma wouldn't land a guy like Jordan Clay, promise you folks, it has absolutely nothing to do with Emmett Jones. If Oklahoma doesn't land Zachary Turner, it has nothing to do with Emmett Jones. Because these days, Grayson, the wide receiver position is a high-dollar position, especially for blue-chip talent. And so you better be ready to pay for players of a certain caliber at wide receiver.
I think it's time to have this conversation.
Okay.
What is Oklahoma going to ever be willing to outspend everybody for? Because the quarterback you got in this class, you didn't really have to outbid a whole lot of people for.
No.
Sure you won out with Michael Fasuzi. Okay, cool. In last year's class. But the common theme that keeps coming up here is that was a price Oklahoma wasn't willing to pay. And I know Jim Nagy's role of here, part of it is to properly price commodities and figure out what we want to give to what. But at some point, you have to show that, hey, we can come to the bidding table and outspend some of you guys for somebody.
Yep.
Don't you think it's got to come to that at some point?
Amen. You're 100% on the money. And maybe that will happen. And I think all of the folks doing the bedwetting at this point are to a certain extent getting out over their skis. I agree with everything that's gone on this week. It's not a good look as far as PR for Oklahoma, and it does kind of feel like a kick in the groin, especially when you're talking about certain positions now where you have come up short throughout the summer. Oklahoma's going to need another body on the interior offensive line at some point. They're going to need to make some more offers at wide receiver. We saw them make a new offer yesterday to Joel Wyatt, 4-star wideout from the state of Tennessee, who's committing next week. So I don't even think there's enough runway for Oklahoma to make any serious noise in his recruitment. But there are positions where Oklahoma's going to have to go down the board. But as we've learned in the past, time and again, sometimes when you go down the board, you can find guys that turn out to be really good football players at the University of Oklahoma. You can also find guys that might be in the transfer portal after a year. But you always have guys cycling through the program that are around for a year or two, and then they're in the transfer portal because they just either don't live up to the billing or they feel like they're getting underpaid. So I think anybody who's legitimately hand-wringing over the state of the 2026 class and preaching doom is probably a little that whole narrative is a little exaggerated, more than a little exaggerated. If you've been following OU recruiting for any duration of time, I think you've come to learn that trends tend to even themselves out over the course of a cycle, and by the end of it, Oklahoma always has a solid class. Even if it doesn't look exactly like what you imagined it might look like at an earlier point in the calendar. But no doubt, I don't think the vibes are great right now. Not what you expected them to be within a week of Bo Bentley's commitment. And I think over the next couple of months, we're really going to see how much it actually matters to have a blue-chip quarterback committed to your program and peer recruiting his wide receivers, as Bo Bentley is. Because in the past, that would have mattered a ton. We saw it matter quite a bit with Caleb Williams when he was committed to Oklahoma. He was very successfully able to go out and recruit a guy like Jalil Farouk to follow him to Norman. But does that matter anymore in the NIL era? Does it matter nearly as much as it once did? That is to be determined. Early indication would seem to suggest the answer is no, however. All right, folks, we got to hit an opening timeout. Much more to get to over the course of the hour. A couple of decisions coming up that we're going to discuss in detail. 3-star tight end Josiah Jefferson will commit later this afternoon. 4-star offensive tackle Deacon Schmidt out of Windsor, Colorado will commit tomorrow. We will preview both of those decisions and get to many of your texts on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, 405-651-3439. On the other side, this is the Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
Hi, folks. This is Larry Knippelmeyer here at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet in Blanchard, USA. Conveniently located just 15 minutes south of Oklahoma City and 10 minutes west of Norman. With all the talk of inflation, market crashes, and tariffs, it's no wonder we're all afraid to make that new vehicle purchase. Now, with that being said, there will probably never be a better time to purchase your new Chevrolet at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet. No price increase or tariffs on our huge selection of in-stock vehicles. Pickups, SUVs, cars, and even Corvettes, all marked down and ready to sell. Interest rates are good, used vehicle trade-ins are high, and rebates and incentives are back on most new Chevrolets. So hop in that old vehicle and come see us at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet in Blanchard, where nobody beats our deal. Or give us a call at 405-485-3333 or catch us on the web at knippelmeyer.com. Chevrolet, together let's drive.
Imagine one step, and suddenly a fall turns into a fracture. For many, osteoporosis is a hidden threat, weakening bones silently until it's too late. At the Ortho Central Bone Health Clinic, we believe in personalized care to keep bones strong and resilient. Led by advanced practitioner Amanda Boyd, our team specializes in detection and personalized treatment plans, from bone density testing to strengthening bones after a fracture. Take charge of your bone health today. Call Ortho Central's Bone Health Clinic and let's build better bones together.
Hi Norman, it's DJ Newsom with Alliance Bank, your community-driven, friendly neighborhood bank. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur, lead a nonprofit organization, or just someone seeking a better banking experience, we've got you covered. From business to personal banking, we tailor our services to suit everyone's needs. We believe in making banking easy and enjoyable. Visit our Norman location or call us today at 405-286-5750. Alliance Bank, banking tailored to your needs. Member FDIC.
Visit Confidence Ford of Norman and receive employee pricing on our Ford lineup. But that's not all. We'll also give you a complimentary spray-in bed liner and window tint on all remaining new 2024 Super Duty trucks in stock, or save up to $10,000 on all remaining new 2024 Broncos. Drive the Ford you've always wanted from a team that puts you first. Visit us today, conveniently located at 825 North Interstate Drive. Confidence Ford of Norman, part of the Cavender Auto family, where confidence is Cavender.
Hey Sooner fans, it's almost football season, and there's no better time to gear up than right now at Balfour of Norman, your locally owned headquarters for all things Sooner. Whether you're searching for your new lucky game day polo, tee, or hat, we've got you covered from top brands like Nike, Jordan, and Tommy Bahama. Looking to take your tailgate or watch party up a notch? Check out our great selection of OU glassware, flags, and serving pieces. Come support local, stock up on Sooner style, and get ready to yell Boomer Sooner, only at Balfour of Norman, where Sooner spirit lives year-round.
The wait is almost over, and football is almost back. What better way to celebrate than to give members of the Ref Army opportunities to win big with the Ref's third annual Gridiron Giveaway. Join us for our Gridiron Giveaway, live from Buffalo Wild Wings in Norman, just south of Highway 9 on Classen, from noon until 7, as we give away 70 different teams from the power conferences. And those lucky enough to get one of the final 4 finishers in the college football playoff will get one of our 4 grand prizes. Even members of the Ref Army who don't get a team still get a chance at one of our many instant prizes. The Ref's third annual Gridiron Giveaway is brought to you by Riverwind Casino and Hotel. Riverwind is complimented by a variety of bars, restaurants, and the best live music in the metro. It's no surprise that Riverwind is always a good time. That's the Ref's Gridiron Giveaway at Buffalo Wild Wings in Norman on July 30th from noon to 7. The home of Sooner fans. The Ref Sports Radio Network.
Locked in. Rolls along here on a Friday. Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton. I'm out here at Riverwind Casino, conveniently located off I-35 and Highway 9, featuring almost 3,000 of your favorite games, 20 table games, 13 poker tables, and the state-of-the-art Showplace Theater with over 1,500 seats, where you can come enjoy some of your favorite musicians live with endless gaming and entertainment options. There's something for everyone out here at Riverwind. We are just over an hour removed from 4-star Owasso, Oklahoma defensive tackle Taj Overton's commitment to Oklahoma State. He had officially visited Ole Miss. He had officially visited OU. He decides on Oklahoma State, and that puts Oklahoma in legitimate danger, Grayson, of signing 0 in-state prospects in the 2026 cycle. Braden Presley is kind of the last hope. And I have not gotten the sense that Oklahoma is pushing all that hard to bring Presley home in advance of his July 3rd decision. So I did not imagine I would ever say these words. I did not imagine that we would ever be staring at this reality. But here in the 26th cycle, Oklahoma may not sign a single in-state prospect in their recruiting class. I think I can say pretty authoritatively that would be a first. That has never happened in the history of OU football. On record, in the modern recruiting era, as far back as I can go, the fewest number of in-state signees that Oklahoma has ever had in a single cycle is 2. And obviously in the pre-internet recruiting era, i.e. prior to 2000, localized recruiting was much more so than it is today the lifeblood of a program. Schools were recruiting primarily out of their own backyards. And so I think I can say pretty conclusively, pretty definitively, that this would be a first in the long and distinguished history of OU football. I brought this up on Twitter, and my comment was, look, this isn't necessarily an inherently good thing nor an inherently bad thing, but the times they are a-changin'.
I don't know if danger is the operative word here. And the reason being is because look at all the other football players you've gotten. Now, as I say that, it is not lost to me that traditional diehard fans want to see the kids that grew up in Oklahoma, the kids that were right down the street from Norman. They would like to see you bring home some of those kids, a la a Mason James. Maybe if you were go to the 918 and land Taj Overton. I understand that. But look at everybody else you've brought in. Sure, you didn't get Mason James, and boy, does that one loom large now at wide receiver. But you're able to hold on, it seems, to Daniel Odom. You weren't able to bring home Taj Overton. But Brian Harris, all of y'all that listen, y'all love Brian Harris every time he comes on. And I don't think he's going to be the only defensive lineman that Oklahoma's going to be able to sign. You got 2 linebackers right now, and you're in good position for a third. You got you a nice corner to put on the back line seniority-wise of a really talented corner room. So you have gotten kids that fit what you're trying to do and fit nicely with your culture. Not to mention, you got your quarterback that, although he grew up in suburban DFW, has always been a lifelong Sooner fan. So I understand that PR, since we're talking about that, PR, this is not the greatest look for Oklahoma. I can concur with that. But when you say danger, it almost seems as if you're implying, well, this is going to have some catastrophic avalanche type of effect, which I don't think it will. They'll get back to the state of Oklahoma, but for now, they have lost out on the state. For whatever reasons, some of that might be. But I don't know if this is going to be, especially in the world of college football now, where recruiting is nationwide. I don't think that this is necessarily some sort of awful development here in the 2026 class with Oklahoma.
405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. And you bring up, and it's factual. It's not necessarily for lack of effort that Oklahoma has wound up bone dry thus far in the 2026 class in state. Now, look, they weren't willing to go to the lengths that Oklahoma State was willing to go to for a guy like Taj Overton, and that's fine, right? Like, you gotta abide by the philosophies and principles of your own program. You got to run your own race. But we spent the first segment talking about how it feels like Oklahoma's behind the 8 ball a little bit at the wide receiver position. If Oklahoma signs a subpar wide receiver class, which may happen and it may not, this could all be for naught within a couple of months. But if Oklahoma does sign a subpar receiver class, this trend holds, there's going to be a lot of folks second-guessing Oklahoma's recruiting efforts at that particular position in the 26 cycle come December on signing day, with the knowledge that there was a kid 5 miles up the road at Norman North High School that, let's be real here, Grayson, if Oklahoma had pushed for him, they probably would have gotten 4-star wideout Mason James, who has since committed to Washington.
No, you're exactly right, Parker. And that's why I mentioned him here. Because basically what happened is, in the spirit of trying to get guys that fit your phenotype that you want, the staff said, yeah, this isn't going to be a guy that we push for. Even though he really, really wants to be there, and he has some really, really high potential for some upside. Nah, we just don't want him. A kid right in your backyard, you do that to him? And I totally get wanting measurables that really fit how you believe is best to build a team. But if you're talking about the downward spiral of PR, I think most of our listeners can concur with this. You don't do that. Especially when we're talking about a dude. It's not like we're talking about a dude that, he wants to be there and he's a legacy. He wants to be there, but we really, really like to get. No, this is a damn good football player. And now it's come out, and it almost sounds like, I hate to say this, but it kind of sounds a little bit like, slightly like karma. That it's like, you don't do that. That's the way, that's just kind of the way I look at it. With something that is so much of a layup. And then your wide receiver board has turned out the way it has.
Kewan Jones, former OU running back and father of 4-star Oklahoma State running back commit, Caden Jones, is currently in my Twitter mentions going back and forth with an OU fan about the 2026 class in state, about this very topic in the aftermath of Josh Overton's recruitment.
Oh, that should be fun.
I will read you this tweet verbatim from Kewan Jones. #tell it. Nah, I'm pretty sure Oklahoma offered every kid that's committed to O State. Just face it, tide has changed. Saddle up, O State taking over.
Okay, Oklahoma State grad here. Pump the brakes a little bit.
Come on.
Year. Hey, look, man. Maybe Caden Jones is going to be the second coming of what Ollie Gordon was, and he's going to jump in there and etch himself into that legacy of running backs at Oklahoma State. But he still has a senior season left to play at Jinx. So let's chill out for just a second. Okay? But it is worth mentioning though that save Trey McLaughlin from Bixby, who I don't think Oklahoma offered. I could be totally wrong on that, Parker. The two big gets out of the state of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State did beat OU for those guys. KD Jones and Taj Overton.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next thing because it's going to be similarly glum. Good news for people who love bad news. Isn't that a Modest Mouse album? Isn't that who titled their album that? Good news for people who love bad news? Am I making that up, or was that the title of a Modest Mouse album? I don't know. Let me know on the text line. But Josiah Jefferson, Tony Jefferson's younger brother, is supposed to commit later this afternoon. I believe 4:45 p.m. Pacific time, because he's out at Southwestern College in Chula Vista, California. So that's 6:45 local time here. Grayson, there was a heavy OU vibe in that recruitment. Everything looked great for the Sooners coming out of his official visit.
Oh, no.
June 13th through the 15th weekend. Yeah. Completely up in the air right now.
What happened now?
As to which direction that one goes. How can I put this? People are going to love hearing this. They're going to absolutely love hearing this. You know what? How about this? If you want the full scoop on the situation as it stands right now, head over to OUinsider.com because I've posted some intel on there about the situation. Without knowing where Josiah Jefferson is going to commit, I don't want to share any more publicly on this forum until Monday, so no doubt one way or another we'll be talking about it on Monday. But suffice it to say, it is not at all a certainty that Tony Jefferson's younger brother is going to be a Sooner later this afternoon.
Well, that's not good. And
one thing on top of another.
And this is what I'm talking about, and what we were kind of talking about with Mason James, right? You gotta make the layups. Like, these are layups. And I get Josiah Jefferson is coveted by other schools that are, you look at Arizona State, on the come up. Nebraska, I believe, is in there, on the come up. But you, on one hand, Mason James, dude right down the street. We've already litigated that. Homie's older brother, who has made himself into an NFL household name for a long time, by the way, is right there for you to take. Like, these are the layups you have to make in recruiting. And it seems like in the 2026 cycle, surely they've made some of the layups. One of those being Bo Jandro, after his twin committed. You better make sure he doesn't get out and go to Oregon or Texas. You got that one. Okay, cool. You got Bo Bentley. But these are the sort of things that can start to spiral and frustrate people, is when you can't convert those into signees, like a Josiah Jefferson, if indeed he does not pick Oklahoma.
Reformed Sooner on the text line said, lesson to learn, insiders really don't have credible inside information. Okay, well, that's just blatantly not true.
That's not true.
Blatantly not true. Look, here's the reality. Covering recruiting is a very, very difficult thing to do because so much can change so quickly. I mean, you're dealing with the emotions and feelings and decisions of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. And so if it feels like stuff changes often, it's not because people are just pretending to have information and don't actually know what's going on. No, it's because stuff actually changes. There are some people where it's just, I don't understand why people can't grasp this, Grayson. And there are so many people that just don't get it. Stuff changes. Kids change their minds. Money hits the table in some instances. The sands shift. And I would not be able to lay my head comfortably on the pillow at night if I were reporting information that I had just pulled out of my you-know-what and did not have credible sourcing for. But that's not what I do. That's not what anyone who takes the job seriously does. And it really does suck on weeks like this. I'll admit, it sucks on weeks like this, and it happens from so often where it feels like it's one groin kick after another. Oh, you looked good for this kid, and now he's going to another school. I don't like that because, yes, certainly, to an extent, it makes folks like me look bad. Because, for instance, a guy like Taj Overton, a week ago, things looked great for Oklahoma, and I was reporting as much. But I'll also direct you to Monday morning, where, as OUinsider.com members can attest, I was the first one across the entire industry to report that actually this one's turning in favor of Oklahoma State. At the same time, mind you, that plenty of other people who would be considered credible across the industry were reporting Oklahoma was the trend. And so insiders absolutely have credible inside information if they're serious about the job. And it doesn't take too long to figure which ones are serious about the job and which ones aren't. A 580 listener says, you're losing recruits because you've gone 12-14 in 2 out of 3 seasons. And yeah, that hurts, certainly. But also the aspect that we've discussed and we brought up, and we're probably going to have to bring this all up again in a much more expanded capacity next week. But it's always worth reminding people of is the reality that, hey, look, there are certain schools, maybe schools not as prestigious as Oklahoma or without the strong tradition of championship football, that are willing to pay more for a given recruit than Oklahoma is. It's what is this guy worth to you? And the answer may vary. Last cycle, there were guys that Oklahoma paid for. This cycle, there are guys that Oklahoma will pay for. Bo Bentley's not coming to the University of Oklahoma for $0. Get that thought out of your head if it's there. I would hope it's not. It takes money to piece together a top-tier recruiting class. That's what Oklahoma's trying to do. At this point, that recruiting class is probably going to look a little bit different than I would have imagined it was going to look at the beginning of the month of June, and that many of you imagined it was going to look at the beginning of the month of June. The great news is, any given year, you've got a couple thousand high school football players out there that are good enough to sign to play scholarship football at the FBS level. At Oklahoma, you're not going to have a shortage of viable options. Even if you do miss on a guy here, a guy there. Feels like you're behind the 8 ball a little bit. Things will turn for the better. They always do. All right, one more segment on the other side. You're listening to Locked In here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. The Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line is 405-651-3439. Fire any final questions or comments at us. We'll talk about Deacon Schmidt's upcoming announcement and much more on the other side. Keep it here on the Ref. We'll be back.
Dusty Dvorak here. You're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
River Riverwind is bringing the heat this June at OKC's favorite casino.
So get the party started with the hottest jackpots in town.
Book a stay at our hotel for a weekend of fun with friends.
Win like an all-star on your go-to games.
Grab a bite and a bev at one of our fabulous eateries.
Go for gold with your wild card and play for your chance at $80,000 in our Sunshine Riches giveaway.
For the best summer yet and unforgettable good times, make it Riverwinds.
At Meals on Wheels of Norman, we deliver more than just meals. We deliver connection, compassion, and care to homebound seniors right here in our community. But we need your help. Volunteer drivers are the heart of what we do, and just a little of your time can make a big impact. Join our team, make a difference. Visit MealsOnWheelsNorman.com or contact us at 405-321-7272 to sign up as a volunteer and start serving smiles today.
Do you like to stand out in a crowd while wearing the best in OU apparel? The Jimmy Austin Pro Shop carries the best brands you can wear to work or even dress up events. Lines such as Lululemon, Travis Mathew, FootJoy, Greg Norman, Grayson, or Turtleson with the OU and Jimmy Austin logo are sure to catch everyone's eye. You don't have to be a golfer to shop at Jimmy Austin. They also do corporate special orders for you and your company. Call them today, 405-325-6716, or visit theougolfclub.com for more information.
For 3 generations, the John M. Ireland & Son Funeral Home and Chapel in Morris continued to serve the community by giving back to local schools, charitable organizations, and first responders.
We provide pre-planning for funerals and cremation services at the most reasonable prices.
We are proud to be a family-owned and operated funeral home.
Award-winning funeral home year after year, our family believes in serving the people of our community.
I'm John Ireland.
And I'm Solon Daniels.
You've got our word on it.
Hi, folks. This is Larry Knippelmeyer here at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet in Blanchard, USA. Conveniently located just 15 minutes south of Oklahoma City and 10 minutes west of Norman. With all the talk of inflation, market crashes, and tariffs, it's no wonder we're all afraid to make that new vehicle purchase. Now, with that being said, there will probably never be a better time to purchase your new Chevrolet at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet. No price increase or tariffs on our huge selection of in-stock vehicles. Pickups, SUVs, cars, and even Corvettes, all marked down and ready to sell. Interest rates are good, used vehicle trade-ins are high, and rebates and incentives are back on most new Chevrolets. So hop in that old vehicle and come see us at Knippelmeyer Chevrolet in Blanchard, where nobody beats our deal. Or give us a call at 405-485-3333 or catch us on the web at knippelmeyer.com. Chevrolet, together let's drive.
Remember, always be generous with the nutmeg. Just eyeball it.
Okay.
Mom's wisdom has served you well, but now it may be your turn to guide her.
Hey, I'm worried about Mom. She keeps forgetting her famous sweet potato pie recipe.
Some things come with age, sis.
And some don't.
Knowing the early signs of Alzheimer's in a loved one will help you make the best decisions for your family. Visit 10signs.org to learn the signs. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
When I grow up, I want to be a teacher.
Because when I'm a teacher, I can help kids to learn and chase their dreams.
PI, a defect of the immune system, affects millions of children. Early and accurate diagnosis and treatment give children like Sam a chance to achieve their dreams.
It takes a lot of caring teachers to make school fun. It took a lot of caring people to keep my dream alive. And now, because of them, I can be head of the class.
For more information, visit the Jeffrey Modell Foundation at info4pi.org.
Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line 405-651-3439 is where you can chime in here over the last few minutes of Locked In here on the Ref. Reformed Sooner said, stuff changes in recruiting. Yes, proving your info is often worthless at the time. Recruiting is like an NBA game. Nothing matters till the last 2 minutes. Well, look, Reformed Sooner, you're very much entitled to that opinion. I would advise that you just don't follow recruiting if that's the opinion that you hold, which is fine. There are plenty of OU football fans out there that don't give a rip about recruiting, and all they pay attention to is the team that takes the field every fall. And they could care less who's on it or how they got there. But there are plenty, thousands tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of OU fans across this great fan base who love to follow recruiting, not just for the outcomes, but because the journey, the individual journey of each recruitment is entertainment in and of itself, which it is. And part of the reason why I love the job and I love covering it is because it can be unpredictable at times. It's what keeps you on your toes. Ultimately, it's what makes it fun, Grayson, when a guy like Jaden Petit all of a sudden just commits to Wisconsin, of all places, out of nowhere. That's it. Like, if everything were predictable in recruiting, if you could correctly peg everything before it happened, and there was no margin for things to change, there was no reason for things to change, there weren't ebbs and flows throughout the cycle with regard to both individuals and the class as a whole, then it would be a lot less fun to cover and talk about and follow recruiting.
No, I agree. And I think also, I think a lot of fan frustration is because nobody really knows how to feel about how things are working now. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, I mean, you could have foreseen the NIL era certainly making some kind of changes. I brought up how Baylor and Wisconsin can use additional dollars to try to lure recruits away from a school like Oklahoma. But at that same time, I think a lot of people were hoping that Oklahoma could use their disposable dollars as well to keep some of these guys from otherwise going to another place like that. So I think it's just a frustration of kind of where while one segment of college football is recruiting one way, Oklahoma has elected to do it an entirely other way. It's by essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul, except multiple Pauls. You're going after the spend cheaper and get more quantity, and instead you're missing out on some of the bigger names. So again, I understand the frustration, but this is the game you play when it comes to recruiting because, like you said a few minutes ago, you're dealing with 16 to 18-year-olds. I don't know anything more. Especially 16 to 18-year-old young men too. I don't know anything more unpredictable than dealing with that age of dudes. So it is a process. It's about the journey. Sometimes information is going to look one way, and then 24 hours later is going to be something else. It happens. It's the world we live in. So, just buckle up and I guess enjoy the ride. Sometimes you'll get to a destination you want to, and sometimes you won't.
The bleeper on the text line says, if Overton wants to go to a team that went winless in the Big 12, good for him. The bleeping Aggies will never be a national contender. A 405 listener says, so basically when you miss out on the guys you really want because you won't match when it comes to NIL, you end up overpaying when it gets down to being desperate and having to get someone who is farther down on your list. Kind of dumb, if you ask me. I mean, is there some of that at play? Certainly. I don't think I haven't known Oklahoma over the course of the time I've been covering the program in the NIL era to be a program that pays out of desperation. Oklahoma hasn't bagged a player out of desperation as long as I've been around. Now, I think the closest thing to it is probably the John Mateer deal. I mean, Oklahoma understood that for so many reasons they had to get it done with John Mateer, and they were able to, and they spent a lot of money to do so. But on his end, John Mateer was really agreeable about all of it, and he wanted to play for Ben Arbuckle, and he wanted to be a Sooner. So it wasn't like Oklahoma had to throw a desperation bag or else he was going somewhere else. No, he had plenty of reason to want to come to Oklahoma outside of the financial offering. Chris from Knoxville says, no question or opinion here. Just want to say, Parker and Grayson, I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope the same for you, Chris. And if you want some good news, so we talked a lot about bad news over the course of the show to this point. If you want some good news, I think you're going to get some tomorrow. I would be genuinely shocked if Oklahoma does not pick up a commitment tomorrow from four-star offensive tackle Deacon Schmidt out of Windsor, Colorado. He is scheduled to announce, I believe it's 2 p.m. Central Time tomorrow between Oklahoma, Alabama, and Colorado. Oklahoma has led the pack there for quite some time. Feel great about the Sooners' chances to close the deal with Schmidt. So if you want some good news, you're going to have some good news tomorrow in all likelihood. Hawaiian Sooner says, in Jim Nagy I trust. If he thinks a recruit is worth a certain amount, then let him do his job. And that's kind of the way I've summed it up recently is, hey, look, regardless of what's actually happening, regardless of what appears to be happening, I think your feelings on Oklahoma recruiting are going to be largely dictated by how much trust you have in Jim Nagy. And I'm not going to try to convince you to trust or distrust Jim Nagy. That's up to you. But if you trust what Jim Nagy's doing, if you trust his resume, trust his reputation, trust his eyes as an evaluator, and his management skills at the top of the food chain for OU football, then you're probably not freaking out about the state of OU recruiting right now. If you don't trust Jim Nagy, then you're hand-wringing. That's what it boils down to, Grayson.
Here's the question, though, that you have to ask, because trust is earned, right? And trust is earned over a period of time. So if you don't really trust it and it's not coming together yet, because here's the thing you have to realize. Parker, when did Jim Nagy get here?
Jim Nagy got here in late February.
Okay. Why is that so important? Because a lot of the recruiting of this 2026 class had already been well underway. The gears had already started turning, and by some people's interpretation, and it is a valid one, you could say that Jim Nagy got here and upset the apple cart with certain targets. And I'm pretty sure you all can have a name that comes to mind. A lot of us are probably thinking the same name. But so that's going to take a little bit to be able to wrap your arms around. The second thing in all of this with Jim Nagy, too, is that, especially when it comes to high school recruiting, it's going to be 2 years at minimum for most of the prospects for us to really see what Jim Nagy's impact is going to be. Now, we might see his impact in the transfer portal if Jaden Ott turns this thing around and is a big part of it offensively. I think you'll see that because that's Jim Nagy's one startling accomplishment right now is pulling Jaden Ott out of the transfer portal in the manner and as expeditiously as he did. But high school recruiting, man, right now it looks kind of topsy-turvy. It looks right now as, man, we keep getting outbid. Every time it comes to something that has to do with financials, we keep getting outbid. Why are we the ones that keep getting outbid? I understand that. So it's going to take a minute to be able to actually fully see and get a full assessment on what Jim Nagy's actual impact has. And I think that is going to be hard for some people to wait that long. And I completely sympathize you if you fall into that category.
By the way, I'll drop another little nugget here. Got a scoop on this one. You can lock in a commitment date for another Oklahoma target that's going to be announcing in early July. I have it on good authority that Braxton Lindsey, the linebacker from Rogers, Arkansas, is going to be going public with his pledge on July 7th. So expect that one to come down to OU and BYU. I like where OU has positioned themselves. I think if you've learned anything over the last week, and this is an evergreen lesson to learn when you're following recruiting, nothing is a certainty until it is done. But I like Oklahoma right now for Braxton Lindsey. If they hold the trend in that recruitment, they should be poised to pick up their third linebacker commit of the cycle. And, boy, what a class that would be if you were able to pair him with Bo Jandro and Ja'Cory Smith. Glenn from Nashville says, I'm sorry, I don't care how you try to spin this. It does not look like Nagy knows what he's doing. Oh, listen, Glenn, you're entitled to that opinion. It's been 4 months of Jim Nagy to this point. And again, they're a week removed from landing Bo Bentley. So, might that be what it feels like to you right now? Okay, sure. But be patient. Don't feel the need to make a judgment on this yet. Jason from Miami says, Braxton Lindsey for my birthday, let's go. That also happens to be the day that 3-star tight end Tyler Ruxer from Southern Indiana is going to be announcing his pledge as well. So you might get a little twofer on your birthday, Jason. We'll see what happens there. But OU has been the trend in Ruxer's recruitment. They've been the trend in Braxton Lindsey's recruitment. We'll see if that holds. A 405 listener says, the uncertainty is the fun of it. Being shocked is the fun of the journey. Being outbid is the fun of the journey. Doesn't feel like fun a lot of the time, especially if you're an OU fan, and I get that. But that's recruiting for you. That's why I enjoy covering it. I think that's why so many folks enjoy following it, because it is fundamentally unpredictable to a certain extent. Final text from Mark in Enid. Parker, the wife and I appreciate the hard work on the recruiting you do. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Mark. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Hope all of you have a fantastic weekend. Hope there's some good news brewing for y'all, both with Josiah Jefferson later this afternoon and with Deacon Schmidt tomorrow. So, solid chance that on the other side of the weekend, going back Monday, we'll have a couple of new commitments to discuss. I feel quite confident that there will be at least one new commitment to discuss, and we'll break it all down on Monday. We'll be back same time, same place that afternoon. By the way, also coming Monday, the very first installment of the Dari Noka Show. So set your alarms for 9 a.m. Monday morning. You're going to want to be there. Be there or be square. For Grayson Singleton, I'm Parker Thune. We'll see you Monday. The Rush is next. Keep it right here on The Ref.